My name is Mason. I live in Iowa in a house that sits on the edge of nowhere. Long gravel roads, big skies, and cornfields that stretch out so far you start to wonder if they're ever going to end. It's the kind of place people either grow old in or get out of as fast as they can. I stayed. Ava stayed too, at least, that's what I thought. Our house is modest. White paint peeling at the corners, a porch swing that creaks when the wind gets aggressive, and a garden Ava planted the first spring we moved in. She used to talk to the tomatoes like they were old friends. Said it helped them grow. Said it made her feel grounded. That was before. It was a Monday evening when she came back from a 3-day marketing conference in Des Moines. Not too far, just a few hours' drive, but far enough that the silence in the house had settled into something I could feel in my bones. I'd spent the weekend fixing up the gutters and organizing the garage, things to stay busy. Things to stop myself from staring at my phone waiting for a text that barely came. When she walked in through the front door, something was off. I didn't even need to look at her to feel it. It was in the way the doorknob turned, slow, hesitant, like the person coming in didn't quite belong anymore. The second the door swung open, she dropped her suitcase with a thud, let out a sigh that felt a little too rehearsed, and kicked off her shoes like they were made of lead. I leaned against the wall, half smiling. "Hey, you made it back." She didn't even glance at me. "What a hell of a day," she muttered, already walking toward the kitchen. "No hug. No kiss." "No, I missed you." Just steam from the kettle and the hollow clink of her mug against the countertop. I watched her from the doorway as she moved. She looked tired, yeah, but not tired like someone who'd been stuck in a conference room for hours. It was a different kind of tired. Like the kind that comes from pretending. From holding something in so tightly it starts to wear you out. "How was the conference?" I asked, my voice as casual as I could make it. She didn't answer right away. She opened the cabinet, pulled out the herbal tea she only drinks when she can't sleep, and stared at the box for a few seconds before finally saying, "Fine." Long. That was it. No stories. No jokes about her coworkers. No mention of the keynote speaker she'd been excited about last week. Just a shrug and a word tossed out like it didn't mean anything. She disappeared upstairs after that, mumbling something about a shower. I stood in the kitchen for a few minutes longer, just listening to the water run. I was trying not to overthink it. I told myself not to overthink it. She was probably just exhausted, I reasoned. 3 days of networking, presentations, awkward small talk, who wouldn't be wiped out? Still, the silence in the house felt heavier now than it had all weekend. I figured I'd do something helpful. Toss her laundry in before it started to smell like hotel rooms and road wear. Just a small gesture. I opened her suitcase, expecting the usual, heels shoved between jeans, a toiletry bag that always leaks, and folders full of paper she'll never look at again. But what I found made me sit down on the edge of the bed like my knees suddenly forgot how to work. It was a red gift bag, hidden beneath a folded blazer and a silk scarf I'd never seen before, tied at the top with a ribbon. Not a travel souvenir bag. Not a conference giveaway. This was intentional. I pulled it out slowly, hands shaking without me fully realizing it. Inside the bag, nestled in black tissue paper, was lingerie. Not the kind Ava usually wore, the functional stuff she picked up on sale at Target or ordered online in bulk. No, this was delicate. Expensive. Carefully chosen. A matching set, dark red lace with tiny details that screamed luxury. And below that was a small jewelry box. Matte black, the kind that clicks when you open it. On the top, in soft silver cursive, were the words, "For nights only we remember." I didn't open the box. I didn't need to. I sat there for a long time, just holding it in my lap like it might start explaining itself if I waited long enough. My first thought was that it might be for me. A surprise, maybe. We had our anniversary coming up in a few weeks. Maybe this was her way of spicing things up. But that thought barely formed before it unraveled. Because even if that were true, wouldn't she have said something? Dropped a hint? Smiled? Looked me in the eye even? None of that had happened. No spark in her expression. No trace of affection. Just a tired woman who moved through the house like it didn't belong to her anymore. I put the lingerie back. Closed the suitcase carefully like it might shatter if I moved too fast. When I heard the water stop running upstairs, I stood up and walked out of the room like nothing had happened. Because for a few minutes I let myself believe it was nothing. Just a strange gift. A weird misunderstanding. Something I wasn't supposed to find yet. But deep down, even then, I think I knew. Something had changed. Not just with Ava, but with us. And once you see that kind of thing, it's hard to unsee it. I didn't say anything about the lingerie. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not for an entire week. I told myself I was waiting for the right moment. That maybe she'd bring it up herself. Maybe it was for me and I'd ruined the surprise. That thought held me over for about 3 days. Then the silence started feeling like something else. Like complicity. Like cowardice. I became hyper-aware of everything after that. The little things I used to brush off or chalk up to stress. Things I once believed were just part of the ebb and flow of being married. Now they felt like evidence. It started small. Her phone used to be an open book, left on the counter, face up, passcode known, messages in plain sight. But now? She was suddenly protective of it. Always face down. Always locked. She changed her passcode too, which might have gone unnoticed if I hadn't tried to check the weather while she was in the shower one morning. The old code, our anniversary date, didn't work. That one stung more than I want to admit. I didn't ask about it. Not then. I just set the phone down, walked out of the bathroom and told myself not to be that guy. The suspicious one. The insecure one. But suspicion grows roots if you water it long enough. She started coming home later. Said her team was gearing up for a product launch and the hours were piling up. I believed her. I wanted to. But there were things that didn't line up. Like the nights she'd come in after 10 and claim she hadn't eaten yet, even though I'd see a receipt in the trash the next day for some trendy place downtown. Places I'd never been with her. Places that took reservations. She stopped calling during the day too. That used to be her thing. A quick lunch call, even just a check-in text. But those dried up fast. If I texted her, I'd get a one-word answer. Or worse, an emoji. At night, she'd scroll on her phone, angled just slightly away from me, smiling sometimes. Not at me, never at me, but at something on that screen. Or someone. One night, around 1 a.m., I woke up to the sound of a muffled laugh coming from the bathroom. The door was shut, the light was on, and the fan was running. She didn't come back to bed for 20 minutes. When she did, she smelled like that new perfume, something floral and sharp. A scent she used to hate, once calling it what anxiety would smell like if it had a bottle. Couldn't sleep? I asked, pretending I hadn't just spent 20 minutes staring at the ceiling, wondering who was making my wife laugh in the dark. She barely looked at me. Just scrolling. Lost track of time. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the moments kept stacking up. The makeup that started living in her purse. The random outfits I'd never seen before. The locked drawers in her home office that used to stay open. And the strangest part? She wasn't angry. She wasn't even defensive. If anything, she was disengaged. Like I was the roommate who overstayed his welcome. Like she was halfway packed in her mind already, waiting for the right moment to tell me what was obvious to everyone but me. I started second-guessing everything. Conversations replayed in my head like bad reruns. I'd lie awake at night wondering when it had started, if it had started. And then I'd feel guilty for even thinking that way. Like I was betraying her by letting my mind go there. But the truth was, she'd already gone there without me. I knew it. Deep down, I knew it. But I didn't want to be the one to say it out loud. Because once you name the thing, once you shine a light on it, it's real. You can't unknow it. You can't roll over and pretend the distance between you is just a bad week or two. The space between us had grown into something else entirely. Something cold. Something strategic. I started watching her, not in a creepy way, but like an outsider looking in on a stranger. The way she moved through the kitchen. How she didn't hum while folding laundry anymore. How she'd touch her hair a little too much before leaving the house, even on days she claimed she was just running errands. I noticed the way she checked her reflection twice before getting in the car. I noticed the way she didn't check mine at all. The nights became unbearable. I'd lie next to her, listening to her breathe, and wonder where she really was when she said she was at dinner with the team. Wondered whose arms she was in. Wondered if she looked at him the way she used to look at me. One night, I asked her half-joking, "You ever think about taking a weekend off? Just you and me?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We'll see. Work's insane right now." That was her answer for everything. Work's insane. Meetings are piling up. Sorry, I'm just so tired. And maybe she was. Maybe lying that much is exhausting. A week after she got back from Des Moines, I finally brought up the gift bag. We were having coffee in the kitchen. Well, I was. She was standing by the fridge, absently scrolling her phone. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice light. "Meant to ask you, what was in that little red gift bag in your suitcase?" Her hand paused, but only for a second. She looked up at me, blinked once, and said, "Oh, that? Just a gag gift from the team. You know how they are." I nodded slowly. "Yeah. Sure." She didn't ask why I was going through her suitcase. Didn't ask what else I saw. She just went right back to scrolling, like the conversation had never happened. But her eyes had done something her mouth didn't. They twitched just for a second. Like a glitch in the script. And that was the moment I stopped pretending. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not just because of the bag. Not just because of her vague lie, smooth as polished stone. It was the way she said it, just a gag gift. Like it was nothing. Like she hadn't paused. Like the words had been prepared. I lay in bed beside her, staring up at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above us, and I realized I wasn't even angry. Not yet. I was hollow. Like my body was waiting for permission to feel something, anything, once the truth had a name. That came later. Around 3 a.m. after her breathing slowed into that steady rhythm that let me know she was deep under, I slipped out of bed. Quietly. Like I was the one sneaking around. I padded barefoot into her office. The laptop sat on the desk like it always did, clean, neat, like the rest of her curated life. I sat down, took a breath, and opened it. New login screen. She had changed the password. I just stared at it for a second, like the machine had just confirmed something I hadn't wanted to believe. Her password had always been our anniversary date. For numbers and a pound sign. I tried it just in case. Incorrect. That's when the sting hit me in the chest, sharp, quick, and hot. Changing the password wasn't just about privacy. It was a declaration. A line drawn in the sand. I sat there in the dark, letting my hands hover over the keys, and thought through everything I knew about her. Ava always used simple passcodes. She didn't believe in password managers or multi-factor anything. She used birth dates. Names. Inside jokes. So I tried her birthday. Month, day, year. Success. I hated how relieved I felt, but I pushed the guilt aside and opened the browser. There were 3 tabs open. One was Gmail. Another was Pinterest. The third made my stomach turn. It was an Airbnb listing. A 1-bedroom apartment above a coffee shop downtown. Brick walls, warm lighting, windows that let in the morning sun. The kind of place someone rents when they want to feel like they're in a romantic movie. Somewhere you go not for sleep, but for escape. The reservation dates matched her conference. And then I saw the message she'd sent the host. Important that it feels private. We want to be alone, no distractions. We. That single word knocked the air out of me like a punch to the ribs. I didn't want to believe it was real. I really didn't. I told myself there had to be another explanation. Maybe she split it with a friend. Maybe someone else used her account. But then I opened the desktop folder labeled marketing_reports. She was always so organized. Folders for everything. Inside the folder were dozens of photos. They weren't work-related. Candles on a table. Wine glasses half full. A charcuterie board, the kind she used to say was too bougie for us. Ava, standing by the window in that apartment. Wearing the same silk robe I once bought her for our 3rd anniversary, only now her expression was different. Softer. Unburdened. And then the photo that sealed it. Ava, wrapped in another man's arms. His face tucked near her neck. Her eyes closed, smiling. No awkwardness. No guilt. Just warmth. Like that's where she belonged. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. My heart didn't race. It just stopped maybe. Or slowed. I felt like I was watching someone else's life, someone else's nightmare. I sat there, staring at that photo until the screensaver kicked in and snapped me back into my own skin. I could have woken her up. Marched into our bedroom, thrown the laptop on the bed, demanded an explanation. Yelled. Slammed a door. Made a scene. But I didn't. Instead, I closed the laptop, stood up, and walked into the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water and drank it slowly, staring out at the backyard. The moonlight fell across the garden where her marigolds had started to wilt in the late summer heat. She hadn't tended to them in weeks. I realized then I wasn't looking for the right moment to confront her. I was just waiting to stop loving her. Because even with the photo burned into my brain, I still felt something. Still felt tethered to this life we'd built. Still wanted to believe there was a way back from it. But deep down, I knew there wasn't. The next morning, I didn't tell her what I knew. I didn't even mention the laptop. I made coffee. Poured her a cup like I always did. She sipped it without looking at me, scrolling her phone with the same detachment she'd perfected over the last month. Are you happy? I asked quietly. She looked up startled. What? Just wondering, I said. Are you happy? She held my gaze for less than 2 seconds, then stood up and walked into the other room without saying a word. That was my answer. So I packed a bag. Just my laptop, a few clothes, the documents I'd need. I texted my brother, told him I'd be staying with him for a while. He didn't ask why. He just sent me the code to his garage. That afternoon, I removed Ava from our joint bank account. Took her off the Amazon profile. Called the landlord and had her name taken off the lease. No shouting. No drama. Just clean exits. Paper cuts. By evening I was gone. 3 days later, I was sitting on the porch at my brother's place when a man pulled up in an old Mustang. Baseball cap, leather jacket, looked like a guy trying real hard not to be the bad guy. He stepped out, walked up and said, "You Mason?" I nodded. "I'm Jared. Just wanted to talk." Of course he was. I didn't stand up. Just looked him over. "She told me what happened," he said. "Said you just left." No explanation. I raised an eyebrow. "You're the explanation." He looked down. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this. We met at a work event, one thing led to another. She told me you were distant. Like a ghost." I let out a dry laugh. "She chose you," I said, "because you don't know who she really is yet." He blinked. I stood then, walked down the porch steps, stopping just a few feet from him. I wasn't angry. I wasn't trying to imitate him. I just wanted him to hear me. "Listen, man. I'm not gonna fight you. You can keep her. You already have. But when she stops laughing at your jokes, when she starts coming home late, when she turns her phone away from you, just remember this moment." He didn't say anything. Just nodded quietly. And I walked back inside. It's strange how quickly life reshapes itself after a betrayal. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't ask her to explain the photos or beg for a reason. I didn't give her that kind of power. What I felt was something colder than anger. Clarity. I think that's what real heartbreak is. It's not the tears or the yelling. It's the quiet. The knowing. The moment you stop wondering why and start accepting that it just is. That morning, after Jared left, I sat at my brother's kitchen table for almost an hour, just looking out at his backyard. No cornfields, no garden, just a patchy lawn and a trampoline his kids had outgrown. I don't even remember drinking my coffee. I remember the sound of the fridge humming, the clock ticking too loudly, the world moving like nothing had happened. But something had. Something irreversible. I spent that day making lists. Not of what I'd lost, but what I needed to do next. Documents to update. Accounts to split. People to notify. I canceled our internet service and switched it to my name only. I transferred the utilities. I removed my name from anything we once shared: Spotify, Hulu, that dumb streaming service we never used but always paid for anyway. I changed the Netflix password. A small thing, sure, but a satisfying one. I had her name taken off the lease that same afternoon. Our landlord was a quiet guy who'd lived in the duplex next door for 20 years. When I told him we'd be separating, he just gave a slow nod and said, "You need anything, you let me know." That was it. No questions. Just quiet support. Every time I checked something off the list, it felt like pulling another root out of the ground. Painful, yeah, but necessary. I couldn't heal while pieces of her were still tethered to my day-to-day life. Ava didn't reach out. Not even once. No calls. No texts. No "where are you" or "let's talk." Just silence. And somehow that silence said more than any apology ever could. She knew what she did. She wasn't sorry. Or maybe she was, but not enough to chase me. Not enough to undo it. 3 days after I left, I got a message from her friend Leah. Just one line. She moved in with him. But she looks empty. I stared at the message for a while, rereading it like it was going to change. It didn't. I didn't respond. What was I supposed to say? Tell her I look fine? I didn't need to hear how Ava was doing. I already knew. Whatever fantasy she'd chased, whatever warmth she thought she'd found with Jared, it wouldn't last. Because when you build something on top of someone else's pain, it doesn't grow. It rots. But that wasn't my problem anymore. Instead, I wrote. I don't even know why I started. One night, I opened a blank document on my laptop and just started typing. Not a letter. Not a message. Just thoughts. Everything I hadn't said. Everything I had felt too numb to process. I wrote about the night she came home and dropped her suitcase like it was full of bricks. About how she used to call me during her lunch breaks just to ask what I was having. About how she stopped laughing at my stupid jokes. About the look on her face when I asked if she was happy and how it said everything her mouth refused to. I wrote about the gift bag. The photos. The silence. I wrote about Jared. And then I wrote about me. What it meant to rebuild. What it meant to walk away without burning the house down. What it felt like to carry something so heavy that the only way to survive was to set it down and walk off barefoot, bleeding but still breathing. I didn't plan on sharing it. I still haven't. It just became a place to empty the hurt. Like siphoning poison out of a wound. And somewhere between the paragraphs and the pauses, I started to feel lighter. I got a new phone number. Told the people who mattered how to reach me. Blocked the ones who didn't. I returned the last of her things in a box. No note. No explanation. Just a folded sweater, her old planner, and the pair of earrings she'd left on the bathroom counter. I dropped it off at her friend's house and never looked back. I drove to the lake a few times during that first week. It was about 30 minutes from my brother's place. Not the prettiest lake in Iowa, but quiet. Still, there's something healing about water when your life's been turned to ash. I'd sit on a bench, watch the wind ripple across the surface and just be. No music. No phone. Just me in the water and the sound of birds pretending everything was fine. And maybe for a few hours it was. That's how I knew I was going to be okay. Not because I'd stopped caring, but because I'd stopped waiting. I wasn't waiting for her to apologize. I wasn't waiting for a message or a reason or closure. I'd closed the door myself. It doesn't always happen with a slam. Sometimes it's just a quiet click. I thought moving out would feel like falling. Like free fall. But it didn't. It felt like stepping onto solid ground for the first time in months. I rented a small house near a lake. Nothing fancy. One bedroom, small deck, peeling paint on the shutters. But it was mine. There was something sacred about that, the privacy, the stillness, the absence of questions I didn't want to answer. I unpacked slowly. A box at a time. I didn't rush to fill the space. For once I was okay with the emptiness. I bought a coffee table secondhand. Put my record player on top. Played the music Ava used to say gave her headaches, old acoustic stuff, moody instrumentals, bands she said sounded like ghosts whispering. I played it loud. I rearranged the furniture 3 times before settling on a layout. Something about putting the couch against the wall felt wrong. I moved it under the window instead where the afternoon light hit just right. It reminded me I was still allowed to enjoy things. One night, about 2 weeks after I moved in, I found myself sitting on the deck in a hoodie, sipping coffee that had long gone cold. It was late September and the leaves were just starting to crisp and fall. I hadn't checked her social media. I didn't need to. But sometimes I'd still wonder what she was doing. Whether she was happy. Whether she looked over at Jared in the mornings and felt the same creeping silence I used to feel when I looked at her. That curiosity faded faster than I expected. Not because I forced it, but because I realized that healing isn't about pretending the past never happened, it's about building something new beside it. I started working remotely full-time. The same job, same clients, but now with the luxury of silence. No pretending. No walking on eggshells. I took calls from the deck with a view of the lake. I answered emails while the wind made the windows creak. It was a different kind of rhythm. One that finally felt like mine. Occasionally, people would ask how I was doing. Old friends, coworkers, even my brother. I'd give them the same answer every time, better than I expected. Worse some days. But still standing. That was enough. The dreams came and went. Some nights, I'd dream of her, laughing, touching my arm, sitting next to me like nothing ever cracked between us. Other nights, she'd look right through me. Walk past me like I was furniture. I stopped trying to interpret them. Sometimes your brain just needs to leak, I figured. The mornings were easier. I found a rhythm. Get up. Make coffee. Sit on the deck and breathe. It was a ritual. A way to remind myself, you're here. You're safe. You're rebuilding. One morning I got a text from Leah again, Ava's old friend. I don't know if I should be saying this, but she's not doing great. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't care, but because I wasn't responsible for fixing her anymore. That part of me, the fixer, the pleaser, the partner who kept showing up even when she didn't, had finally gone quiet. I wasn't mad at Ava anymore. That was the strange part. I wasn't anything. I didn't miss her. I didn't hate her. She just was. Like an old house you drive by and think, I used to live there, and then keep going. I kept writing. The document on my laptop grew into something I never meant it to, a record of all the things I'd never said out loud. Things I didn't even know I felt until the words appeared on the screen. I didn't edit. Didn't reread. Just let it pour out like a slow, steady leak. There's something freeing about writing for no one. No audience. No judgment. Just you and the truth. I think that's how peace comes, not in waves, but in trickles. Tiny moments that whisper, you made it through. One night, I read back the first few pages. The section where I talked about the suitcase. The bag. The photos. And I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Just grateful. Not for the betrayal, but for the truth. For the breaking. Because sometimes something has to shatter before you realize it was hollow all along. The house by the lake didn't have much, bare walls, cheap blinds, one decent *let, but it was mine. Every inch of it. No secrets. No hiding. And in that emptiness I started to feel full again. The divorce was finalized in early October. No lawyers in a courtroom. No drawn-out fights over furniture or plates or who gets what. Just a few signatures on cold paper, a final email confirmation, and then nothing. I didn't celebrate. I didn't cry. I just closed the email and made myself a sandwich. It felt anticlimactic for something that used to be my whole world. But that's the thing about endings. They rarely explode, they dissolve. Quietly. Like fog lifting off the lake in the morning. One moment it's there. Then it's not. I thought the silence would be the hardest part. Turns out it was the most healing. I started noticing the small wins. Like the first time I walked through the grocery store and passed the cereal aisle. My hand instinctively reached for her favorite brand, some overpriced flaxseed thing she used to swear by. I paused. Then I picked up mine instead. The kind I liked. The one with fake marshmallows and no nutritional value whatsoever. That was the moment I felt free. There's something sacred about small rebellions after you've been broken. Playing music at full volume because no one's there to say it's too loud. Leaving dishes in the sink overnight and not feeling guilty about it. Sleeping sideways across the bed. Taking up all the space. I didn't try to rush back into dating. Didn't re-download apps. Didn't ask friends to set me up. I wasn't ready to share myself again. Not yet. I needed to learn who I was without Ava, without her shadow hanging behind every decision. And slowly, that version of me started to show up. I took weekend drives without a destination. I joined a local photography group. Started cooking new recipes just for fun. I laughed more. I called my brother for no reason. I even helped his son build a treehouse, which somehow led to me hammering my thumb more than once, but it felt good to be useful. Most importantly, I felt honest. With myself. With others. I didn't pretend anymore.